You guys, this is Vanessa Morgan right here on Poze Radio, and I'm giving a live interview to punk, gothic, and metal artist from Rossville, Georgia, VIP I'm Misanthrope. Hey, how's it going?
Great. How you guys doing?
We are awesome over here. I'm really glad to be interviewing you today. So, can you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, and, who is I Misanthrope, and what do you do?
Okay. Well, my name is Chris Waters. I've been a multi instrumentalist for quite a while. I'd say probably since the early 2000s. Uh, I've always I've been a musician since the early 90s, and I've had a hard time trying to come up or trying to get musicians to work with. So, and a lot of that had to do with me working, schedules, stuff like that, going to college, and so what I did is over time I learned how to start recording on my own and starting doing stuff like drum programming, recording guitars, vocals, bass, stuff like that, and basically I've got a few projects going on. I Misanthrope basically being my solo project. I also have the Middle Finger Blues Extravaganza, which is that's a project. It's more punk metal absurdist kind of thing. I also have Blood Song, which is like a kind of a Glenn Danzig tribute, but has original songs. It's more aimed towards the Misfits Samhain style, and I've also been a singer for the brutal death metal band called Puke. I also program drums for my friend's black metal band Moribundus Christus. Let's see. Trying to think if that's it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I used to be the multi instrumentalist for my first project was called Quietus, and it was more of a death black metal thing. Definitely a lot more nihilistic than what I'm doing now. So
Awesome. Oh man, that sounds great. You have so much going on. That sounds awesome. Busy.
Right.
That sounds good to me. So, can you tell me what influenced you to start writing your music and to start getting into the music industry that you are in now?
Well, I've always been interested in music. I've been a metalhead since the late '80s, and as with a lot of metal musicians, we want to, we hear it, we love it, we want to play it, and a lot of what influenced me to get into it was, especially with the technology that we got nowadays, that I'm actually able to do this myself and, not have to worry about getting a schedule together and getting bands together and stuff like that. But I do have a few people that I work with occasionally. But yeah, as far as getting into the music industry and things like that, it's something I've always wanted to do. And, when I started finding out about this technology and everything, started learning how to use it, I started going about and actually doing it. And I would release stuff, I'd promote it on social media or through email lists and stuff like that. And and so there you go.
Awesome. Sounds awesome. So tell me, what do you feel are the challenges that you face as like a metal or a gothic and punk kind of artist compared to other genres and other artists in the music industry today?
Well, metal's really not, and it never really has been as mainstream as a lot of other styles of music. Now, I'd say except for maybe hair metal in the late '80s, everybody liked that, and then and they still do, and and of course, despite maybe a couple of things like Limp Bizkit and Korn or something like that, but mostly metal didn't really conform to a lot of what was popular, and it wasn't as easily accessible. Say maybe modern country music or rap, hip hop, R&B, sometimes even techno or adult contemporary, anything like that. A lot of that's more accessible. Metal and punk, they usually try to challenge things, and also their content sometimes scares people away. It's just like people that watch horror movies, for instance. Some people can't watch horror movies because the content's too disturbing for them. I mean, sometimes even horror fans, it's too disturbing for them. But you know, but really, when you give it a chance and you feel like, whoa, wait a minute, it's not that bad, you know. And I'll be honest with you, I was kind of that way with horror movies, but I was also that way with metal myself. I remember when I was growing up in the late '80s, I was in a was a young teenager. I was in a youth group at church and everything, and you know there was a satanic panic thing going on at the time. So I remember there was a special that Geraldo Rivera had. It was basically telling you what all bands were satanic and things like that, and they were basically saying Metallica, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, a lot of stuff like that. I think they even mentioned Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. But and of course they said, you know, don't listen to Slayer. They're ultra satanic and stuff like that. And of course, you know, at first I was like, okay, I'll heed your advice. But then when I actually gave it a chance, I'm like, that's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. It's not making. It's not. You know, people were afraid that, oh, you listen to Slayer, you're going to go out and kill somebody, you know, do a satanic sacrifice or something. I'm like, no, that's not the case. You know, people are just overreacting about this. As a matter of fact, I actually know of several metal bands from back in the day, and they told me that, you know, they used to do, well, actually, I think some of them still do, as an image thing, they do the whole satanic thing and stuff like that. And they told me it was basically to scare the living crap out of people, you know. You know, and usually they were teenagers when they started doing this, so they had fun scaring the parents and scaring other kids and everything like that. But in the end, you know, either they didn't believe in that stuff. Well, most of them didn't believe in that anyway. But then there were some of them that even became born again Christian, and they're still, you know, just to keep the image going and stuff like that. They're still doing the satanic thing just so they'll have fans come to their shows, you know.
Man, that is crazy. I mean, well, that's awesome, though. I mean, you know, it's something out there for everybody. So, you know, I feel like, you know, people shouldn't knock it till you try it, to be honest. I know that's a saying everyone says now, and it's, you know, sometimes overused, but really, you really should, you know, so you at least try it out, you know, because, I mean, not everything is for everyone. I understand that, but, you know, you don't want to just push something away that you haven't even tried yet. You don't even know. Maybe you like it, you know, so. Right. Awesome. So I'm glad that you found the love for it, too. You know, I actually really like that kind of music, too, myself. And a lot of people are like, okay, you really shouldn't listen to that or whatever. But, you know, I'm glad that you actually found your own path and the own sound that you like to hear and that you want to be sounding like, you know, instead of trying to, you know, copy everyone else out there or trying to be something that you're not. I'm glad. I'm really glad that you found that. That's awesome. So can you tell me what kind of messages are you trying to with your music?
Okay, well, with Puke, we were doing like the brutal death metal thing, and originally we kind of wanted to do something where we just came up with song titles that were not right. For instance, as a matter of fact, we had a song called "I Gave Knives to an Epileptic Retard," which I think it was something that my nephew and I came up with when we were drinking one time. But we were coming up with song titles like that, and so originally we started out like that. As a matter of fact, we got a CD out called "Perversions of the Elderly," and I know it's crazy, but so originally we were going with that route, but then we decided, wait a minute, people like us and we're doing more of the brutal death metal thing, so let's come up with some more brutal death metal kind of stuff. So we came up with, we had some other songs like Humiliate the Suffering, which was also on Perversions of the Elderly, and also the album cover art, we ended up putting it was like a picture of a man, covered in blood in a bathtub or something like that. So it didn't look funny at all, whereas some of the rest of the album was funny. So it didn't really match. But from Puke actually came the Middle Finger Blues Extravaganza, because I still wanted to do some of the absurdist kind of humor and song titles that just aren't right. So so that's what I did there, and and of course I came up with that song "Shit Ass Motherfucking Cocksucking Fuck." There's a video for it on YouTube, uh, and with that one, basically I just started yelling random obscenities. You know, when I was at the time I was working at an insurance company, and I was always stressed out. So of course I would get in my car, I'd turn on my cell phone, and hit the record button. I'd just record myself screaming random obscenities and stuff like that. And I had I always had something in mind for that song, basically, like a tune that'd go by. So I went ahead and recorded it and just put all those random obscenities in it. Like, I think there's one part where I go, retarded cock, penis shit, or something like that, And so basically, I was wanting to do something that points out just all these absurdities and things like that. Because, for instance, when I was working at the insurance company, it's like, the whole idea of the insurance industry is just absurd. It's like a big scam and everything. And, and a lot of people don't realize it. It's like, oh, well, you got to have it. But it's just this big scam. It's absurd. And speaking of the absurdities nowadays, I mean, of course, the guy we got in the White House, that's absurd. I mean, it's absurd that we even got him. It's like, what the hell is everybody thinking? Not to be political or anything, but it's just that climate now. But and then I was also wanting to work on a song called "Shut Up, Kanye," and that has to do with, the stuff that, he plays some awesome music, but at the same time, he says all this absurd shit, and I'm like, shut up, play some music, So that's one song I'm considering working on, and of course, I've got several others in the works too. Um, and of course, I mentioned the Project Blood song. That one is basically aimed at a Glenn Danzig. The Glenn Danzig stuff from when he was in the Misfits and Samhain, the earlier stuff. So I'm concentrating more on like the Misfits punk rock and the and Samhain's experimentalism and continuation of some of the punk rock stuff. So I'm in the works on one song right now. I even did the artwork and some of the drums last night on that. It's a song called "I Want Your Blood," and I wrote it in the same Glenn Danzig violent style that he did some of his songs back then. So there's that. And then I Misanthrope. This one is kind of a continuation of Quietus, which was my first project, was a death black metal outfit. And for the most part, I was the only member. I think I worked with a drummer from the Netherlands for a little bit, just exchanging files back and forth. But with that one, I was just so angry, and so I was going on this nihilistic kick. And originally, what I was going to do with Quietus was do the gothic metal thing. I actually wrote an entire album of stuff called Wilt, and it dealt with my suicidal depression, which I've suffered with most of my life, and so that's one of the reasons why I Misanthrope is very personal. Quietus was too at the time. So, and originally I started recording this stuff, and I realized at the time I wanted to go in a heavier direction, and I also got tired of hearing the same thing over and over again, which is another challenge that I have as a recording musician, record stuff on his own. A lot of times I listen to the song like 500 times and get sick of it. But what I did, I ended up going in a heavier direction, but at the same time, with all the anger I was experiencing with, being out in the world in my 20s, in the early 2000s, I started coming up with a lot more nihilistic stuff. As a matter of fact, I even started exploring different types of darkness and everything. And I I stumbled upon some like a ancient Sumerian uh, creation tale called the Enuma Elish. I wrote a song even that appeared on the debut album from Quietus called Bout. Came out in 2006. Uh, oh, no, forgot to mention in 2002 came up with the Destroyer of Worlds EP. That was basically my first recording attempt, so it sounds very bad. and but I'm sure some people probably want to hear it though. And but I came up with this song sung entirely in ancient Sumerian, and it scared the living crap out of me. And one of the things that I actually heard years later was, if you start saying stuff in dead languages, there's a chance that you'll probably summon something you don't want. And it was kind of a given when I did a song that translates in English to summon the evil god of death. So it was kind of a given there, and I recorded this song sung all in ancient Sumerian, and the next day, just weird stuff started happening. Like I was my oldest would start sleepwalking and everything for no reason. Just kind of have these night terrors and stuff. She was probably about six. Wow. She was probably about 5 or 6 at the time, and I. And one time I was actually cranking up the car to take the kids to school. I was warming it up, and all of a sudden it kicked into gear. And this, mind you, this was the very next day. It kicked into gear and slammed into the fence. I had to get it towed out. And just weird stuff like that started happening. My wife even says she felt like an evil presence, kind of like a hand just kind of came across her head or something. So luckily, with her being Christian and everything, she prayed throughout the house. She knew something was wrong, so got rid of it. And at that time, it actually kind of opened my eyes as well. So it for a while there, I had a hard time trying to get back into music, and but I still jammed on a few things. And what I was jamming on was kind of in that gothic metal vein that I had in the beginning. So I Misanthrope just spawned from that, and one of the things that I was planning on doing with I Misanthrope, and I actually have succeeded in doing, was trying to get rid of the misanthropic, nihilistic thoughts and stuff like that, and beliefs that I had at the time, and kind of change it out for something good. Just embracing the good in the universe and stuff like that. So I Misanthrope is definitely a very personal project and everything. So it's a lot harder to work on, but it deals with, and they're all conceptual projects, by the way. The debut album that I released, originally released in 2011, but I just didn't like the way it came out, so I redid it and re-released it in 2018. It sounds so much better. And but the content itself was, people can sometimes embrace something they think is good, but it ends up being evil, and they realize the destruction that they caused in the end, and they're like, oh my God, what did I do? And I feel like that definitely has a place today in what's going on. There's a lot of people that are just brainwashed by and hopefully I'm not offending anybody when I say this, but evangelical kind of stuff, and and it's not really embracing the good, but it's embracing some of the stuff like the hate and discrimination and things like that. Yeah. And and then in the end you realize, oh my God, what did I do? What kind of destruction did I cause and stuff like that. And in the end, you're seeking redemption. So that's the direction I went into with that.
That is amazing. That is, well, that's powerful. I mean, for other people, I've heard different kinds of stories and everything, and yours is actually truly one of my favorites now, because that is amazing. I really like that, how you decided, the way you're kind of going back and forth with yourself on what your style is and what you want to convey to your audience, and how you've released the album, like you said, in 2011, and you're like, oh, it doesn't sound right. Let me perfect it. And now release. That's really cool because, most people I've heard are just like, okay, whatever, I put it out there, at least it's out there, whatever. But you're really true to your music. Right. And you're like, I want to have this perfected. I want people to know exactly what I mean, exactly what I'm saying in each and every project. So that is amazing. I think that is really great gift to have. Misanthrope, can you tell me, I know you have your debut single coming out really soon that you're currently working on, Blood Song. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Blood Song's basically something I wanted to do ever since I was a teenager. I was a big fan of Glenn Danzig's stuff. At the time, he was doing Danzig, which was more of like it was more, I wouldn't say more mainstream, but it was more directed towards a commercialized audience at the time. It was very blues metal and stuff like that, and which I really, really loved his stuff. But I also really liked the Misfits and Samhain, which were his original projects. I mean, I would even have dreams at night that I found some kind of album I didn't know about from Misfits and Samhain and stuff like that. So that kind of influenced me into, well, why don't I create music like that? But of course, at the time, it was hard to get all the band members together, with schedules and stuff like that. And but now I was thinking, why not go ahead and do that now? It's something I always wanted to do. So the song, I wrote it in the violent Glenn Danzig style. It's basically embracing the horror movie, the violent horror movie edge and everything like that. Kind of. I know some of the stuff the Misfits did back when they didn't have Glenn Danzig was a little bit more. It was horror oriented, but I guess it wasn't as violent. But this is basically a throwback to what he was writing and things like that, and just not giving a fuck whatsoever about what anybody thought. So, but yeah, that's basically the whole thing behind that. Is I just wanted to get that sound out there. As a matter of fact, I'm planning on possibly getting my friend Caesar from Moribundus Christus to do drums for it. He's offered to do that, but just for the original single, since I'm wanting to do a Halloween release of it, I figured just go ahead and do it. I've got drums recorded. I've got the artwork done. Now I've got to get the rest of it done. And I smashed my finger the other day at work, so hopefully I can still do the power chords and stuff like that without a problem. So
awesome. That sounds great. That sounds amazing. I'm really actually looking forward to that. Halloween is actually about 5-6 days from now, so hopefully you definitely get that release. So I'm looking forward to that. That's awesome. And you know what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say hopefully so, because I see I'm running out of time,
Yeah, true. And I'm so glad that I've actually had a chance to sit down and have this interview with you because, there's a lot of people out there that needs your kind of music. And there's people I know who will actually be interested in listening to your kind of music because, you're actually really different. You're unique and you have this really versatile kind of sound to you, and you can hear it in your music. You can hear your soul being poured out into the song. You can hear it. So that's really awesome. That's a really, really great gift to have. So I'm glad that you're continuing to perfect your craft. That is awesome. You guys, this has been VIP Misanthrope right here on Poze Radio Live Interview. You guys, you can hear this interview again. It will be aired on VIP Poze Radio as well as other Poze Radio features. Thank you so much, Misanthrope. I appreciate having you so much on here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor, and I'm so glad to be part of the Poze family.
Oh, you are very welcome. And again, you guys, you can listen to this interview again right here on Poze Radio. And you can also find out so much more information about Misanthrope. Just visit his profile. It's under Chris Waters on PozeProductions.com. Or you can just type in Google and look at all his music. He has all kinds of great music out right now. He's actually coming out, like you said, with a new these days. So make sure you stay tuned for the Halloween special, Blood Song. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Vanessa Morgan right here on Poze Radio.